Okay, welcome to ANC 34G's special meeting tonight. A special meeting is called for one specific topic. We may have some business to attend to as well, but the topic we're focusing on tonight is a request for proposal, a draft request for proposal that DDOT has prepared for the Smart Street Lighting Project, which is a topic that our ANC has been involved in for quite some time. I'm Randy Speck. I'm chair of the commission. I represent single member district 34G03, and that includes the area between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch, roughly. So now we'll have other commissioners introduce themselves. Connie, you want to go next?
Hi, yes. Hi, I'm Connie Chang. I am the commissioner for 34G05, which is Connecticut Avenue, starting Legation, going to the Circle, hooking to Western and down Broad Branch Road, about there.
Lisa?
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Lisa Gore. I'm the commissioner for 3G01, and that's the neighborhoods of Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Woods. So I cover from Oregon Avenue over to Upland, which is a little past Pinehurst, and over towards Arcadia and Beach, down up in that area.
Okay, Chris?
Chris Frombaluti, I'm 3G07, which is the area bounded by Military, Reno, Nebraska, and Nevada. And welcome, everybody.
Peter?
I'm Peter Goslin. I'm the commissioner for District 6 of the 34G ANC. That's from Western Avenue in the Circle to Military, the west side of Connecticut, back to 41st Street. And a little peninsula on the east side where I happen to live.
Michael?
I am Michael Zeldin, 34G04. My district includes the Lafayette Elementary School and runs pretty much from Morrison to Tennyson, Western to Utah, in that sort of circle there.
Okay, we have 6 members of the commission here tonight, so we can conduct business. So we have a quorum. Just a word about the procedures tonight. We are obviously on Zoom, and we will be recognized. All of the commissioners are panelists and have their audio and video. For any of the attendees, if you want to add to the discussion, you can either use the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be monitoring that as we go through the meeting. And if you would like, after we've made the presentations and after the commissioners have had a chance to ask some questions, there'll be an opportunity for any of the audience to raise questions, and they can raise their hand if they would like to speak. So I think before we get started though, here's John Higgins, who is just joining us. I'll have him introduce himself once we get a video. Hello, John. You want to introduce yourself? You're on mute.
Okay.
You want to
Just
introduce
going to
yourself? All the other
introductions.
commissioners have done that.
Okay, I'm John Higgins. I'm the commissioner for single member district 02. I live in the Norwood Senior Facility. I guess, is that all I need to say?
That's sufficient. Okay, and as I said tonight, we're focusing on just one major substantive issue, and that is the Smart Street Lighting Project and the request for proposal from DDOT. And Commissioner Frombaluti is going to be running that discussion tonight. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Randy. So the reason we're having a special meeting today is that comments on this RFP are due tomorrow. So if we didn't have it, we wouldn't have been able to comment on it. So let me give you a quick overview of the RFP. Okay, so this RFP will cover replacing all 75,000 streetlights in the District of Columbia with new LED fixtures. That's every street light that exists in alleys and streets. This will be a public-private partnership contract, which is known as a 3P. And a public-private partnership means that both the contractor and the public and the private share in the responsibilities for the project. 3 finalists have been shortlisted. So the RFP, the selection has been going on for a while now, and it's down to a short list of 3. So that's what this final RFP is all about. The winner of the contract will construct, install the fixtures and maintain everything related to streetlights for 15 years. So this is, it's a long contract. The negative side of having one company do all this is that DC workers will no longer be working on our streetlights and fixing them. They'll be replaced by workers from the company, which is probably a cost savings for the city. So there are 4 different basic types of streetlights in the district. There's and I need to tell you what they are because this comes up in the discussion. So they're post types. Post type is the old-fashioned single post lamps you see all through Georgetown and some of the historic districts. And then we have something called twin 20s. Not sure what the 20 is about, but that's the double post tops that you see on major avenues. And then there's something called a teardrop light, which is a pseudo historic light, which started to be installed about 15 years ago in the district to complement the post tops, which didn't do a very good job lighting intersections. And you can see them throughout, they're in our neighborhood. They're around, you see a couple of them around 5333 Connecticut. They're along Nebraska Avenue toward the park. And then finally, there's what we call Cobra heads and incandescent arm lights, which are classified together. And those are all the lights. There's metal post type, like along Connecticut Avenue. Those are Cobra heads, a fairly modern version of a street light with arms. And then you have the old fashioned type, which you see in the residential neighborhoods, which are incandescent. And they're, I think, liked by a lot of people because they're a very soft light and they're not very glary. All of these lights will be, the post top, the twin 20s and the teardrops will remain, but they'll be replaced. The bulbs inside of them will be replaced with LED bulbs. The Cobra heads and incandescent arm lights, the fixtures themselves will be removed and they'll be replaced with one of those flat LED fixtures. The exact design will be determined by the winner of the contract. So one of the things that's going to change when there's a light is out, or if there's a problem with a light, you won't be calling 311. You'll have to call the company that maintains the lights. There's some other advantages besides going to LED lights, which are much more efficient than the lights they're replacing and have a very long bulb life. Some other advantages is it's going to be a smart street lighting system. That's the term they use. So all the status of all the lights will be monitored remotely by the contractor. So if a bulb burns out, they'll have a warning. A warning will go off in their central control place, and they'll be able to go. You won't even have to call them if they're paying attention. They'll be able to go out and fix the light, or if there's something else wrong with it. And they also can adjust the brightness of the fixture. So if a neighborhood decides that a street is too bright, they can turn the street light down from their control center, or they can make it brighter. So that's an interesting new wrinkle to the thing. So the schedule of the RFP, the RFP started in 2017 is when it was first written. And the next milestone is February, when the council will review the RFP. And I guess that's why all the comments on the RFP have to be in by tomorrow, so that they can gather, the council can gather them and others can gather them, and they can review all the comments and review the RFP in the light of the comments. In March, the final RFP, which may be revised by the council, will go to the 3 bidders. And in April, May, time frame proposals will be due from the three bidders. It's not necessarily the lowest bid. It's based on criteria. It's called a best value contract. And in the fall, if everything goes well, the project will start. And the estimated completion time is a maximum of 2 years. So this is pretty current. Finally, the comments on this RFP, if anybody in the audience wants to go make a comment, the email to send the comments to is d.streetlightp3, that's all one word, streetlightp3 @dc.gov. So a little overview here of why we're having this meeting. The issue of the street lighting project has been going on since 2014, when this ANC established a street lighting task force with Commissioner Becky Madak and Laura Phinizy as co-chairs. Laura, who's also on the mayor's streetlight advisory panel and knows an awful lot about streetlights, is here tonight to be part of this presentation. The street lighting project has improved significantly since 2014, when some of the issues previously discussed with them have been either adapted or improved upon. So when the RFP originally came out, all the lights were blue, 5,000 Kelvin or 4,000 Kelvin. Now they're more in line with what, at least color-wise, with what we're interested in, which is 3,000 Kelvin and 2,700 Kelvin. Any of you guys, anyone, I can do a little explanation of what that means if you want. Is anybody interested in that? Okay, so
Yes.
I have a computer light here on that lights me up. So this, see how blue I've gotten all of a sudden? That is a blue light. That's the old fashioned, like the mercury vapor and what they were originally going to install throughout the city. This light that's shining on my face is approximately 5,000 K. That was objected to for a whole number of reasons, which we'll go into later. But one of the most obvious problems, and makes everybody looks kind of sickly, like I'm looking right now. So then this is a warm light. So this is more like 2,700 K, and it makes everybody look kind of rosy and healthy and all that stuff. But it's also much better for you because the blue light has problems with people's health. It's been documented. And then there's somewhere in between, like what I got here now, which is more like a 3,000 K light, which is basically pure white light. So that's one of the issues that have come up. But there are other issues also relating to this RFP, which can be improved upon at little or no cost. And these involve, and we're going to go into these in a little more detail, overlighting, which the lights are brighter than they need to be, light pollution, glare, and color, which I just demonstrated, and also energy consumption, which is one of the main reasons for this project to start with. So Laura is going to give a brief history on this topic, where she's been with the ANC and where this is going, where there's some of her struggles. So Laura, if you could get into that, that'd be great. And Laura's with us. Her picture.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for addressing this important issue. I think Chris has done a really masterful job at summarizing where we are with RFP, and he's super up to speed on what's going on with the lights. But I think this in our ANC started about 8 years ago, I think, with the Green Alley project. I don't know if any of you remember that. That was a project to reduce runoff into the rivers. And they tore up like Casado Street and was a big area, put in this bump outs, tore up the alleys. And then a few months after, we noticed street lights, not street lights, alley lights that appeared, LED alley lights appeared in the alleys where the Green Alley project had been done, but that was never presented to the residents as part of the project. The lights were very bright and very blue. They were 5,000 Kelvin, which is I would call it like an alien abduction zone. It's pretty blue. But anyway, so the residents were really unhappy, and so And it took us a long time to figure out what was going on. So we actually worked through the ANC to find out with the city, you know, what is going on with these lights? Is this going to be something citywide? And it turned out that there was a project at that time to convert. It was through a company called CityLume, but there was the project was disputed. It went through litigation, and it actually had to be put on hold and kind of rebid and go through, which really helped us out because back in those days when we were trying to talk about the health effects of blue light and the annoyance to the neighbors, the DDOT folks were saying, you know, health effects, literally, health effects? What health effects? There are no health effects. Because at that point, the American Medical Association had not come out with its recommendation to avoid blue light at night. But we were able to get a moratorium on new lights in this ANC until such time as they came out with something we could live with. The technology has evolved greatly, as you may know. If you bought LED bulbs, even for your own house at the hardware store, they used to be like $28 and now they're like $1.50. They have much warmer temperatures available. And one of the drivers for using a brighter light, or not a brighter, blue light originally was the lumens watts conversion factor was much higher. The older blue lights were much more efficient than the older warm tone lights. But now that disparity in energy consumption has really narrowed. So you have pretty much a very little cost increase when you move to a warmer temperature light, which is better for human health. So that's sort of where we are with ANC part involved in it. And as in about, I guess, 2 years ago, when this mayor had the streetlight advisory panel with some citizens able to join, I asked to join, I was selected. There is no one on the panel from Ward 3. So I'm kind of it, although I live on the Broad Branch, so I live behind Lafayette School, so I'm technically in Ward 4, but in this whole Northwest area, we don't have any other rep. I'm it. So it's kind of interesting that we're underrepresented there, but we've been going back and forth with DDOT, and I would say that there are now 3 of us. There were 4, but one person got quite frustrated with the way DDOT was running things and left. But there are 3 of us on the panel who are quite vocal about pressing for warmer lights, less pollution, as little lighting as needed, preserving the environment and safeguarding human health. There's one member from Ward 8 who is interested in brighter lights. That's what that community would prefer. And DDOT says that they get a lot of requests to have bright lights. They track them. They do not, however, track any request for dimming. We said, you know, well, what's the ratio? And they said, well, we don't track the dimming shielding request. I said, well, that's not really good data then if you're only tracking one side of your data. Anyway, so we have, through the ANC Lighting Task Force, with various projects that have also come up in the years, like the Lafayette School and the Rec Center, we've kind of had a list of guiding principles that we've tried to use, and we would basically like to have those applied to the RFP. And so Chris and I worked together to kind of come up with a short list of recommendations, but I can, if you want, and I just want to make sure I'm not talking too long, Chris, because I know you guys had that Monday marathon. But if you want me to talk about, you know, kind of particular issues that are still of concern, or you know, how much do you want me to talk?
No, I think the most efficient way to do this maybe is, I'm going to go through the RFP. I'm going to read. So the RFP is broken into the various issues. And then when I read it,
you're not going through the, not through the RFP, through the resolution, right? Because the RFP is like 1,200 pages. It's like, no, please.
Okay, resolution. I'm going to the resolution. Now the RFP is
okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through it's only a 2-page RFP, you know, and I'm going to read it. And when I get to a topic, I'm going to ask Laura to make a comment. So so that way you can hit all the points and elaborate. So let me just start with the resolution. So ANC 3G resolution regarding the District Department of Transportation on its proposed request for proposal for the smart street lighting project. Background, ANC 3G has a long-standing interest in the effect of street lighting on the health, safety, and well-being of the community. In 2014, the commission created a streetlight task force to better understand the district's plans and to provide a communication channel to the many residents who had expressed interest and concern about proposed new lighting, color, and brightness. In February 2020, the commission agreed that excessive lighting affects the general health and well-being of district residents and approved a resolution asking that the comprehensive plan include a section on controlling light pollution. So part 2, current concerns. So we have concerns that the request.
Chris, if I could ask one question here. You jump immediately into concerns about the RFP. Would it be helpful to have a paragraph there that just describes the RFP?
I don't think, I mean, it's going to DDOT and they know what that RFP is,
Okay.
right?
I was thinking more for the general public who might be reading this, but that's fine. If we're just focusing on what
we need it, but I could.
That's fine.
Current concerns. We have concerns that the request for proposal in its current stage does not pursue the following goals adequately and ask that the RFP be revised to address these concerns. So I'm going to go through each of them. So I'm going to read the concern and then I'll ask Laura to comment. Overlighting, excessive levels of light are wasteful and detrimental to our health. So number 1, we ask that the RFP require street lights to be set at levels established by AASHTO or IES. So AASHTO is the American Society of State and Highway Transportation Officials. They're the people that establish all the lighting levels on highways, and IES is the Illuminating Engineering Society. And increase light levels only in cases of safety concerns. So in other words, we want the safety concerns are crime, vehicular accidents, etc. That's number 2. We ask that the RFP include a maximum average illuminance of 25% over the levels established by AASHTO or IES for asphalt pavement. And there's a table which we've attached. Now, I can show everybody the table, but the table is pretty complicated. So yes.
I have a question going back to the first concern.
Okay.
So I'm assuming AASHTO and IES are basic industry standard.
Right. They're professional organizations.
Okay. And when you say increase lighting levels only in the case of safety concerns, how is the district or how is that determined? I mean, what's the basis for that? Is that coming from MPD? Who's making the recommendation and what's the criteria for that?
Well, we have asked that because we have not found any relationship. Like there are no statistics that they have been able to provide us to show like that there are more accidents here at night or that the accident was caused by a lack of light. So we haven't, and we've been asking for it continuously for 2 years. So, while it makes sense that, while it's plausible that there could be a correlation or causation, DDOT hasn't yet shown us one. I think it's just sort of presumed, and that they're citizens who ask for it because, most people think that it would be better, but we haven't really seen any actual.
I don't think there's any data that shows over brightness stops crime. I think if there was under brightness, if it's considerably less than the AASHTO standards, there may be a, then it makes it easier to commit crimes. But we're not talking about going below standards, industry standards.
I guess my concern would be if, it's arbitrary decisions based on neighborhood and, crime stats. Like Laura, I'm kind of looking for the data to suggest that this should be done so arbitrary decisions aren't being made.
I don't know. They allude to citizen requests and the number of citizen requests. So I don't know that it's quite arbitrary, but if they get a lot of requests from a neighborhood, then they would go over.
In Ward 8, as I understand, has requested brighter lights. and part of the RFP, we're skipping around a little bit, but there is supposed to be neighborhood concerns are supposed to reflect the types of lights and the brightness of the lights that are going out. So,
Question?
yes, John, did you have a question?
Yes, is overlighting system-wide, or are there sort of pockets of overlighting in different neighborhoods or shopping areas or something like that, rec centers?
There's a table which is part of this RFP, which we could put up on the screen if you want, but it's a big table.
Yeah, if you want, you can put it up and I'll speak to a few key points of it. I went through and took DDOT stats and then plugged it into Excel to show where the overlighting was occurring, not geographically based, because their data was based on road type. And they're like 5 types. They're, they're freeways, arterials, minor arterials, collectors, local, and alley. So I guess that's actually 6, but, and based on that current data, like in the principal arterials in the intermediate and residential area, the lights is currently, it's about 165% over the established sufficient minimum for safety. In the minor arterials, the intermediate and residential are more than 100% over.
So 100%
And the
double.
yeah, so it's like double the level needed. The collectors are 192%, 166%, 197% in a residential collector. So that's more than double. The wait till you get to the local residential, the average is 400% higher than established for the minimum. So, but the local commercial and local residentials, those are only 100% over and 280% over.
So the issue is
Yeah.
and then Connie's next, and then Peter. The issue is that the lights are too bright. They're much brighter than they need to be, and there's no reason for it. It doesn't help anybody, and it just uses a lot of energy, and it actually hurts you because the bright lights are glary and cause problems. So Connie, you had a question?
Yes, I do. At the beginning, Chris, when you were introducing the RFP, you said that one advantage is that it can be adjustable, correct?
Yes.
You said it's centrally controlled,
Right.
and that it can be adjustable. So
That's what they're telling us.
that's what they're telling us, right? So if they can be adjustable, then it stands to reason that certain neighborhoods can how are they going to collect a neighborhood reaction? Meaning, who gets to decide if it needs to be adjusted up or down? Is that part of that RFP or part of the document about how those decisions are made, so
Right.
that perhaps in Ward 8, in a specific area, they'd like it to be brighter, and if the neighbors don't complain, then they should have it brighter. And if in certain areas it's just way too bright, people can't sleep, then how does that happen?
Laura, you can answer that one.
Yeah, so we have asked for that because we basically on the streetlight advisory panel asked multiple times, could we have basically like a very limited menu, almost like, the kids menu, 3 choices, and, for the different levels of light so that different neighborhoods could have an option. And we are told over and over and over, no, we need a balanced approach, which is basically a one-size-fits-all approach. So where one neighborhood might want it very bright, one neighborhood might want it hue closer to the AASHTO minimums, they're going to come in the middle, and then in a process that is analogous to getting a speed bump, requesting a speed bump, you can apply to have DDOT come out and look and evaluate. But if anybody has ever been through the speed bump process, it is not an easy, quick, done deal. It's not like saying, hey, this light shot in my window, come fix it. You have to get everybody on the block, and they have to agree, or a certain percentage has to agree, and the DDOT's going to come out and evaluate, and then they're going to compare to AASHTO. And I would imagine we have said, if you come in very high and you have all these people unhappy, it's going to be like getting the vaccine appointment, you're just going to be stacked up waiting in line,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like at least for our ANC, we would be better off coming in closer to AASHTO and then going up if needed, as opposed to going to the levels of light they start. And quite frankly, I think for most of the city, you know, coming in 4 times what's established is sufficient for safety and security and, you know, vehicular traffic, that's a lot. And the impact on human health is a lot.
But also the bulbs can only be adjusted so much. So if you have a bulb of a certain wattage in there and people want it brighter, it can't get any brighter than a certain amount. So there has to be decisions made when they put the lights in. Peter, you have a question? You've been raising your hand. You're on mute.
I'm a little confused by this discussion. I had thought that back in 2014, or back when Laura got involved, back when you, Chris, got involved, the city wanted to put in 5,000 Kelvin,
Right.
blare everything, flood everything in light. And I had thought that you, Chris, had told us that this RFP has the reasonable compromise figures of 3,000 K for commercial and 2,700 K for residential. Is the concern that I take it you're expressing in a resolution we would pass? That's the thing you're reading from, Chris. Is that
correct?
Is that even those numbers are too high?
That's different. That's a totally different. You're mixing apples and oranges. The K, 5,000 K versus 2,700 K, it's got nothing to do with the brightness. That's the color of the light. The brightness of the light is how. So like you buy an incandescent bulb, the 100-watt bulb is brighter than a 50-watt bulb, but it's a warm light. So now if you went and stuck a compact fluorescent in there, one of those blue ones, then you've got a cold light. It can be just as bright. It can be brighter. So we're talking about, this is a different, overlighting is a totally different issue than the color.
Okay, and just so I understand, is the issue of brightness, essentially back to Connie's point, if the issue of brightness is something that can be adjusted, then is it part of the RFP or not? Are we buying lights that only have a very narrow range and can't get dimmed to what these professional standards are?
I'm not that into the technical aspects. The lights can be, I'm assuming that the bulb, when they put a bulb in a light, it'll have a target brightness, the street will have a target brightness, and that you can brighten it somewhat more, and you can dim it. You can dim a bulb, almost to nothing, but then the color gets weird. But that's what I'm assuming that they're going to do. So, but you don't want to start out with something. You don't want to start out with your baseline is 250% over what it should be. It doesn't make any sense, and it costs more money. So we're asking that they get it right. That the baseline is close to where it needs to be, and we're saying the baseline is 25% higher than AASHTO's safety standard for various conditions. And they have different standards for different conditions, depending whether residential, commercial, it's a big street or a little street or a medium-sized street. That's why I didn't want to show the chart, because it's just, it's 40 columns and 15 lines. And there's a lot of terms in there that but DDOT will understand it. So let me go to so we done with, because there's a lot more of this, and we're still talking about overlighting. The third item, we're talking about this table, which you're going to have to take my word for what it looks like, but we can put it on the screen if you want. We request that RFP Table 5, LED color, temperature, and wattage requirements, that's how it's titled, be retitled LED color, temperature, lumens, and luminance requirements. Now this is technical, really technical, and revised so that the proposed maximum illuminance and AASHTO recommended minimum average maintained lumens both are listed so they can be readily repaired. The problem with this table is that the units of measurement that DDOT puts on the table are totally different, or different units of measurement than AASHTO uses to determine the brightness of the bulb should be. So a normal person, even an educated person, can't just look at this table and see where you are. I mean, Laura had to spend a whole bunch of time doing calculations and to show that these lights are really up to 3 times brighter or 4 times brighter than they need to be. So I mean, that's what that's all about. But we're asking them to revise the table so that it matches what the ANC is asking for, which is what Laura and the mayor's task for lighting, the lighting group thinks is the right number.
Yeah, there's a unit of measurement that you've probably not heard of, but if it's US measurement, it's called foot candles, and if it's metric, they call it lux. But it's basically the light that you see at the ground, and that's what we want them to use, because they're currently their table uses lumens, which is the amount of light that is put out, that is converted from the electric energy to light at the fixture. And that's generally corresponds to what ends up at the ground, but not completely, because some of the light may go out or whatever. We care about what it's like at the ground.
But it's nice if everybody's using the same measurements. So you compare one to the
Right.
other. If you look at this table, you can't compare anything. So we're just asking that the table be revised so that people can see what's being provided.
So are we putting in our resolution, attaching to our resolution, the revised table 5?
Yes,
We did, yeah.
Okay, good.
that's what
Yeah.
that's what's and I
That's
sent
the
that
table
to
that you
That's the
circulated.
table. You people all have a copy of it.
Right. Okay, good.
Yeah, and because they don't even give what the foot candles are going to be. They just give what the lumens are going to be. So the lights are up here and they're bright, but they don't even tell us what's going to be at the ground. They tell us not in this table for the contractor. There's another table that they used back in 2019 that told us to what extent the LEDs would exceed or ASHTO.
So Chris, table 5, the name table 5 is from their document.
From the RFP, right?
Right. So maybe in the parentheses in the resolution, it should be table 5 revised attached, so that it's understood that it's our revision,
It says
not their
actually,
table.
it says C, ANC proposed RFP
Oh.
table 5 attached.
Oh, okay. I must have an older draft. That's
Oh,
awesome.
I just
Thank
sent you
you.
a new one about a couple
Oh
hours.
yeah. Okay. I opened the old
Yeah,
one.
I'm sorry
Thank
about
you.
it.
No, that's okay.
This thing has been
That's good.
going through a number of iterations.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Okay, anyway,
Thank
so,
you.
but it's a good comment.
Mhm.
So the last comment on this brightness, and then we'll move to the more simpler topics. We ask that the total delivered lumens of teardrops and twin 20s, which are the double light fixtures you see on the major avenues, be consistent with the total delivered lumens of post top fixtures. In no case shall they exceed the lumens of post tops by more than 25%. This is just it's an error on the table. There are a number of sloppinesses in the table. You look at it and you wonder, why in the world is this? So
I don't know that it's an error. I think that they may have actually allowed the twin 20s basically are the ones that have 2 globes up. And they were designed by the same guy, Henry Brady, who did the Lincoln Memorial. And the Commission on Fine Arts is very proud of these because, they were like homegrown lights, to increase the federal city's dignity. But I think they would, if not asked to change it, allow 2 levels of brightness, but it's really 1 fixture. So that each should be half as bright, which would also be more historically accurate.
So that's brightness. So the next one is light pollution. So these will be easier. Light pollution is detrimental to our enjoyment of starry skies and detrimental to the mission of the U.S. Naval Observatory, whose observations are the basis for global positioning system, GPS, used in a multitude of civilian and military applications. So light pollution is when light goes up into the sky, and when you're in the country and you're near a city, anywhere near a city, you see the whole sky glowing. That's light pollution, and that's a big issue in Washington. And as I understand it, the Naval Observatory has been complaining that the city is getting brighter and brighter. So the resolution part is we asked that the provision in the RFP requiring Washington globes, those are the little ones, to send 10% of their light up be stricken and replaced with the following language: all fixtures installed in the RFP, other than those in the monumental core, shall have an uplight rating of 0. So what that means, those globes glow, they glow on all sides, including the top. And we're asking that, and outside of the federal core, that there's a shield be put in the inside of that fixture so that the top is is dark, so it doesn't light up the sky. Now, the reason we exempt the core is because the Commission of Fine Arts has said that these fixtures are sacred, they're historical, and there has to be it has to look like a globe. So they've determined that if you allow 10% of the light to go out through the top, that it'll still look like a globe. So I don't think we're going to be able to do anything about that, but at least in Chevy Chase and Barnaby Woods and Hawthorne, any of those fixtures, we're asking that they had no uplight. I don't know, Laura, you want to say anything about that? Or
Well, we currently really don't have globes in our area, but if you notice, whenever they do like a streetscape project, they tend to put those globes in. So, and literally from my house, which is near Lafayette Park and the hill, when they put the globes up, I came back from a summer vacation and they had put them up like George Avenue, and it looked like Atlanta burning and Gone with the Wind or something. It looked like the sky was glowing. And then they did it in Georgetown and the sky started to glow, and Friendship Heights glow. So I would imagine that there may be someone who wants to put them on Connecticut Avenue too.
there's the twin 20s in front of 5333. I don't know why. And they're
Right.
going down Military Road and Kanawha Street, which
Right.
are horrible.
Right.
Aren't they in Lafayette Park? Don't they have this little globe?
Oh, yes, but I got some shields in those, but right now those are off because they were controlled by a circuit breaker in the rec center, which is under construction. So they're not off now, but they do have some caps on the top of those.
So when you're in Lafayette Park, take a look and you'll see that the top should be dimmer than the rest.
Well, they're not on now. They'll have to wait for the park rec center to get done.
Okay. Anyway, go to 5333. You'll see an example of blue lights that are blasting all around. And I don't know how the people in that building can stand it, if you want to know the truth. So the next one is light trespass. Light streaming into homes and onto property has negative effects on sleep and enjoyment of private property. We ask that the RFP specify that light trespass into private property is not allowed. The RFP should specify that lights should use the correct type of distribution. And we have type 1, type 2, type 3, and these are terms that DDOT will understand it, but it's the shape of the fixture to minimize light trespass. If light trespass at individual fixtures still occurs, they should be shielded so as to eliminate trespass. So if you're in your house and you look out and you see the light across the street and it's shining directly in your face, that's light trespass. An efficient fixture should have the light directed in a downward direction, and there's things called cutoff. Fixtures have cutoffs. This is big in architecture, that's why I know about this one. But there should be cutoffs so that light is placed where it's supposed to be, not where it's not supposed to be. And it's a big problem with LED lights because those little flat fixtures don't have a natural cutoff like the Cobra heads do, and the glare can be very disturbing. And Laura, you had lots of complaints at that alley project because they just stuck these lights in there and all of a sudden people, their bedrooms look like daytime at midnight.
They did, and I don't know if anyone is in here from, I see an attendee has a hand raised, maybe, I don't know if, but somebody may want to speak to that, I think.
Maybe at the end.
Oh, wait, okay. Yes, I see definitely one resident from Quesada Street who had those lights. Yes.
At the end, we'll take questions from first the commissioners and then everybody else. So the next one is glare. We are concerned that DDOT has not tested LED fixtures on hills such as occur in our area. We request that the RFP specify that lights used on hills be tested by DDOT for glare before installation, and any additional shielding needed to prevent glare to pedestrians and drivers be designed, tested, and procured prior to installation. And I think, Laura, you had an example of this on McKinley Street.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a streetlight example, but when the buses come, like the E2, E4, and the late E6 used to, come down McKinley. If you're coming from the Safeway and you're headed up that hill towards 33rd and the buses are coming down, I mean, it's disabling, the glare. And I've also been places on like areas where like I've gone on vacation or to different parts, and if you're coming uphill and the LED is above you, it can be quite bright. Whereas if you are going downhill and the LED is below you, it's fine. But we've asked repeatedly that DDOT test them, and I've asked, have you tested on hills? Have you tested on hills? And they haven't tested them yet, and this thing's getting ready to roll out. So I want them to test it. So because trying to get the city to act after the fact is going to be a lot harder than getting them to do it before,
Okay.
in my opinion.
So we're getting to the end. We have 3 more here. Color. This is the one I already explained. Exposure to blue light at night has known negative implications on human health. And I think you guys all know about that. It's been in the press for quite a long time. We request that all lights in our city be 2700 Kelvin, K, 7700 K. If having 2700 K is not possible citywide, we request that all lighting in our Chevy Chase, Hawthorne, Barnaby Woods neighborhoods be 2700 K, including the commercial areas. So right now, the city is saying they've pretty much caved into most of the demands of the people who were against the blue lights, but they haven't completely gotten there. So they're still saying they want 3000 K, which is the bright white light in the downtown core and in commercial areas. I don't know why the commercial areas, but so if you're going down Connecticut Avenue, you'll have the warm lights, and then all of a sudden you'll get to our commercial areas and all the lights will be bright white. And we don't see any reason why they can't all be the same 2700s everywhere. Now, the Commission of Fine Arts has said the downtown is, they want that area to look kind of, magisterial, like, I guess they think the white lights are more government-like or whatever, grander, give a grander feeling. So they, in their wisdom, they've said the whole downtown core has to be 3000 K. And we're not going to be able to change their mind. I've worked with them, and they're very intelligent people, but once they make up their mind on something, that's it. So, but we don't want our commercial district here to have bright white lights. We want them to be the same color as all the other streets. And it's a much warmer, more inviting color. And so that's what this is all about. Laura?
And it's not as warm as yellow as the current high pressure sodiums, which we have. That's kind of yellow. It's 2700 is pretty much just your old incandescent light, just the old light bulb that you used to have. So it's a nice light. It's not yellow. As you get more yellow, it is better for humans and birds. But the 27 is a good compromise between being able to see colors, which some people want to be able to do for security reasons, and also protecting human health.
And I think it's going to be a lot nicer than the sodium lights. Those are way too orange. And as Laura said, the colors just wash out. I mean,
Yeah.
it's. I think they're almost as bad as the blue ones. So I think 2700 is a great color. And if you want to know what it looks like, go on my porch and you'll see LED. It looks just like a.
Yeah.
Does somebody have a question?
Well, I was gonna raise my hand. It seems so important that that we make this point about the detriments to human health. And I know you just stated it, but maybe we should really, I would say, it makes people really grumpy. They've not been able to sleep. There might be more requests to DDOT. I'm just joking here, but what I'm saying is I think listing it is pretty important, so that the message is really strong. Because I know that I think someone just in the chat said that there's a light in their alley and it really affects their sleeping. I never knew to complain, actually. It's in my alley too. And it's so strong, I can't sleep at night. If I'm exhausted, I'll sleep. But if I'm not and the light is shining in, I can't get rid of it. It's just too light. It's too bright.
Yeah, and we just had our January streetlight meeting with DDOT, and at that meeting, I don't see him here, but he presented Wayne Savage for the International Dark Sky Association, and he presented 4 the kind of just one-line summaries that were 4 recent studies, the oldest being 2018. that associated, one was prostate and breast cancer associated with outdoor light in the blue light spectrum. Another was a 2020 study associating colorectal cancer with exposure to blue light at night. Another one was mood and anxiety disorders in adolescents. That was a
Exactly.
2020 study. And another one was the risk of diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. And the American Medical Association back in 2012 also associated it with breast cancer, endometrial, ovarian, as well as prostate, colorectal, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's no joke. And then Wayne also said that in Japan, they're looking at blue light at night as a possible insecticide because of the complete detrimental effect on insect species. Now, if they could find some way to just target mosquitoes, we'd be excited,
You
but
just,
I don't
you
know.
just put it down
You know,
on
in
the
India,
sidewalk,
they
you know.
paint the buildings
Yeah.
blue to keep bugs away.
Yeah.
So we don't have a problem with
Yeah, I
color
think-
in Chevy Chase. All the lights in Chevy Chase are going to be 2,700 K, except for the commercial district, which is 3,000, and that is not blue at all. That's neutral. So I think the blue light issue has gone away, but still, we want warm light everywhere in Chevy Chase, and we think it should be everywhere in the city except for the central core. So that's what we're asking for. So the last two more to go. Energy consumption. Now this is a big one. I mean, the whole purpose of this, one of the main purposes of this RFP is to reduce energy, and here they are. The lights are 2 to 3 times brighter than they need to be, which wastes energy. So it just doesn't make any sense. And we think the contractor, these 3 contractors, one of the criteria for scoring high points on this RFP should be energy efficient scheme. So the contractor that has the most energy efficient scheme should get more points than the ones that don't. That's our opinion there.
I was just going to add on energy consumption, you know, it's taken so many years to get to this point. Why have they not looked at solar lighting? I don't quite understand that. Certainly for commercial areas, if they have to replace any fixtures, why is that not something that's looked at?
That's a good question. I do not know the answer to that. Laura?
I have no idea on that one. I just feel like they are very interested in getting rid of the hodgepodge of lights that we have. You know, right now we have mixtures of mercury vapor and incandescent and high pressure sodium and LED, and there are all these different kinds of bulbs and shapes, and they really want to standardize, which is so maybe the solar was just too much of another variable, but that's a really interesting point.
I think they said in the discussion, because I went to a presentation Tuesday that DDOT put on. There was a question about solar then, and supposedly it's too complicated. It's not that easy just to put a little solar collector on a light post, because you have to back. There's whole complications with the existing system and the generated solar. It's not the same phase and wattage, and so you need little converters. It's not an easy thing just to do solar street lighting.
Doing it on a very small scale like that is not going to be efficient either. If you did add a solar panel for every light, for instance, you'd also have to have a battery of some sort to go to collect the energy, and then it's just not going to be efficient on a small scale like that.
It's complicated. Okay, the last one, which is also very important, testing in ANC G before 3,4G before installation. DDOT promised our ANC a moratorium on new fixtures until such time as they had tested proposed lights in our neighborhood. And we request that testing before full-scale installations occur as promised in order to ensure that any potential issues with glare and light trespass are resolved. So that's the end of the RFP. So questions from commissioners, and then I'll take questions from the audience. Connie?
So I read the executive summary of the RFP, and one thing jumped out at me that I wanted to just bring up and see if there's maybe more discussion in the full proposal, the full request for proposal. So one section says the developer, and apparently the 3 that the finalists are not single companies, they are composite companies. So I wanted to make that clear. The developer will adhere to strict timelines for repairs. It says 2 hours for make safe work, 72 hours for lights out with current, 15 days for lights out without current, and 30 days for lights out without current, comma, conduit repair needed. And my question really is, how do we know? Like, they're supposed to do this, but what's the check? Like, how, I guess what I feel is sometimes you put a request in, you don't know if they've addressed it. How does it's a
I think that-
public-private partnership program, so it's like, how is that monitoring
I
occurring?
think the monitoring was, I didn't get into the nitty gritty of it. I think that might be part of the RFP is for the contractor to tell the city how they're going to do it. But for 311 requests, for example, those are all tracked, and the answers are tracked, as a matter of fact, doing a 311 request on the computer is the best way to get anything done, because city agencies use the data from the 311 requests and to determine how well they're doing. So like if you complain to 311 that a street light's out and it doesn't get done, then there's a black mark on whoever, whatever department was supposed to satisfy that request. And I think it's going to be a similar system. And the other thing that the RFP is doing is there penalties for not performing. I didn't want to get too much into the RFP because that's not really, I don't think we can affect it that much beyond the financial administrative part. We were concentrating mainly on the lighting quality part. But there are statements in the RFP, the contractor is going to be penalized monetarily for not meeting certain metrics. And so one of those metrics we mentioned, energy use. For example, if the contractor says they're going to use so much energy a year, and they use more than that, they're going to get penalized. Now I don't know what the penalties are. Whether it's a slap in the wrist, $100, or whether it's something meaningful and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not sure how they're administrating it, but that's generally how these contracts work, because otherwise they don't have any incentive. Peter.
What are the three consortiums? And if it's too complicated to explain, my only question is, take Lockheed, which I think is one of the big contractors for the traffic cameras. Are they involved in any of this stuff? Because I suspect they're rather unpopular in the city right now, or at least with some of this.
I honestly don't know who they have names. The names of the contractor, the three organizations are unrecognizable to me because they're made up names. But the individual, they might be I've gone after RFPs on big projects. You team up with a whole bunch of people, and then you give yourself a new fancy name.
Okay.
And so that's what this is. It's a conglomeration. So there's part of this is there's design, and there's a design phase, and so there might be one company doing the design of the light fixtures, another company might be doing the installation, and the company that's doing the maintenance might be a third company. So and then there's supposedly a financial there's another company that's taking care of all the finances. So these are complicated webs of companies, which is a little and who's responsible? That's the question.
I withdraw the question.
All right. So do we have questions from the
I have a question for
audience?
me, Chris.
What's that?
I have my hand raised. You have
Oh, okay. Sorry, Lisa.
I am kind of concerned about the replacement of the 311 system. And I don't know if it can be incorporated into the resolution, but I don't know if we want to make a statement that, I'm just concerned about that system going away and then it's going to a contractor and we don't know what's replacing it. So I don't know if there's like a blanket statement that we could make in the resolution that we would like to see something that's comparable.
Well, I think you could still call into 311 to do concern, but it would be rolled over to the contractor. But they are going to, they say that they will have a remote monitoring capability. These will be smart lights so that they could be monitored centrally. And so the system will be flagged, say, oh, okay, there's a light out at, around Glover Park or whatever. And then they would be able to be dispatched. It would be centrally visible. And then they would be able to send folks out rather than waiting for residents to call or not call. They would know.
Yeah, I guess my concern is still that I don't know if in the RFP, if, there's something that states that, and I know, and I understand y'all's focus was strictly on the lighting aspect, but if there's something in there that provides an incentive or that,
The answer is yes, because I read that's one of their criteria, that if somebody calls, they have to have a response in 2 days. And if they don't, and if there are enough people that complain to the city that this is not happening, then the company is going to be docked money. Their financial, everything's tied to money.
okay. So, but that's still kind of taken out of, because now we can go into 311. Someone can go into 311 and put in a complaint. So it's still the transparency aspect is reduced from what I'm hearing. It doesn't seem like there's the same level of transparency where there's a system that the city residents, ANC commissioners could go in to make sure that their areas are still being serviced. We're having that issue with DDOT now, and now they're passing something on to a contractor. So my only statement is I would like to, and you don't have to do that. It's just my suggestion that we strongly recommend that same level of transparency is maintained. Thanks, Chris.
Chris?
Yes.
So what do, I mean, I understand Lisa's concern, and does the contract say, and if it doesn't say, should we ask that it says that all their monitoring results are publicly available? So we can at least test, their 2 days, their 15 days, their 30 days against some record. I mean, I think with 311, we're certainly hoping with regard to other DDOT issues that that's going to provide us with a quantitative database. But if they're going to change 311 and move it off to some contractor, I'd have independent concerns such as Lisa's that we better be able to get to that data too. But in this case, having somebody tell me it's an automatic system and my not being able to see what the results of the automaticity is, isn't very satisfying. So I wonder if there's a friendly amendment to the resolution that asks that all their performance data be publicly available.
Well, we could put in an H called accountability and say elimination
Yes.
of 311 is concerning. We strongly request that all monitoring of complaints are readily accessible to the public.
Yes. Yes. I think we did the 1, 2, 3 punch here. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay,
Chris.
Michael?
So my only one question is on definitions, which I tried to read through and find clear enough about what is commercial, what is a principal artery versus a minor artery. The thing that concerns me is 3,000 versus 2,700. 2,700 seems should be a citywide standard. I don't know what impact it has on crime or whatever purpose 3,000 is to serve. But all I know is that downtown is very heavily residential. And so if all of the indicators are that the brighter the light, the worse our conditions, and we have a growing population that's moving into more commercial, historically commercial areas, why are we not saying 2,700, point blank, why are we not saying 2,700 or saying, non-residential, something that makes sure that people who live in the apartments all over Noma and downtown and elsewhere aren't subjected to the same problems that we're trying to avoid up here. And then the other question is, again, on principal arteries, Connecticut Avenue, Western Avenue, Wisconsin Avenue, very heavily residential. Same question. Are we sort of relegating them to a different standard of lighting that we are trying to set for ourselves? So I just don't know how that's articulated
We do say in the resolution, we
We're
do,
not creating a distinction.
Yes.
Uh,
So Michael, let me answer, I can answer that.
Okay.
First of all, we do say in the resolution, the first thing we say is we request that all lights in our city be 2,700 K. Now 3,000 is no brighter than 2,700. It's just a different color. So the Connecticut Avenue and streets like that in the residential areas will all be 2,700 under the RFP. For some reason, if it's a commercial area, they've changed the color temperature to white 3,000 with the thought is that maybe in a commercial area, people would rather have a truer light. 3,000 is like supposed to be like sunlight. Okay, it's the best for color and things like that. I mean, museums like 3,000, art galleries generally like 3,000.
I understand that. My only point, Chris, was that 3,000 bright light in downtown where a lot of people live exposes them to the same.
Yeah, I agree, but
That's my only.
Commission of Fine Arts is not going to budge with the monumental core. I mean, so that's why we say if having 2,700 K is not possible citywide, we request that all lighting in our Chevy Chase, Hawthorne, Barnaby Woods neighborhoods be 2,700. They don't have to listen. I mean, we're an ANC. Our ANC is basically a local organization. We're saying we think the whole city should have 2,700, but we're basically we're asking if they refuse to do that, then we're saying, okay, we want all of Chevy Chase to be 2,700. And it's a small issue here because the only area we're talking about under the present RFP that would go to 3,000 is the strip between Livingston and the Circle.
So Chris, we have a few questions.
Okay,
Should we
how we handle the
attend to those? We have
Yeah.
one attendee who has two questions. And so I guess we could either bring them up as a panelist. Yeah.
We also have two questions in the chat. You want to address the chat first or your attendee?
What's the difference?
So Milt has his hand raised and then Lee has entered two questions in the Q&A.
Okay, well, the hand raise sounds like it should go first.
Okay. Milt, stand by. Milt, you can ask your question now.
He's on mute.
Yep, unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, my only question was why I couldn't, I didn't realize that it was closed to some participants. So now it's open and I withdraw the question.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, easy
Good
question.
to see you.
Okay, so
All right.
Lee's got two questions.
Mhm.
I'd like to know what streets will get 2,700 K lighting. I'm concerned to Western Avenue, which is residential. No, Western Avenue is all residential. It'll all be 2,700 K. There will be no 3,000 on Western Avenue.
Hey, while we're at it, how about Military Road?
Military Road is residential. All be 2,700 K. Okay, the last one. I'd like all lights to be 2,400 K.
Yes,
No,
this is a challenge.
it's not in the RFP. That's 2,700 is pretty much the standard now for warm LED lighting. I'm not even sure the 2,400 is available from the brightnesses that we like. And Laura, you might be able to know anything about that. It's not a standard.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is constantly evolving, and the contractor does, if I understand correctly, the contractor does have the ability to get lights that are at a warmer color temperature as the technology evolves, as long as it still meets the other performance requirements that DDOT says. So, it has to provide a certain illuminance that they want. It can't be, super dim. But I don't know that there will be an incentive for the contractor to change the light unless he would provide, a significant cost saving to them. So yeah, I think we're probably going to be stuck for 2,700. I think we're I mean, getting DDOT to go to 2,700, I mean, we've been arm wrestling for 2 years. So I'm happy that we finally got 2,700. But yes, I think the technology is going to change, and 3 years down the road, we would be able to get 24 probably.
You know, in my opinion, 2,700 is the best. I think it's a very nice quality of light. You can get great color rendition, and I think everybody will be happy with it. As long as it's not too bright. Is that it for questions? So
Got one in the chat, another one in
another
the
chat question. Okay.
And there was one person who said that the alley lights at her home were way too bright. I do have a contact at DDOT, so I'll just go ahead and put my email in the chat if that's okay. And they can email me offline and I can tell them who to call. Because there may be some resolution there. I can't promise, but it wouldn't hurt.
See anything else up in here? Let's see, chat.
Yeah, there's a Q&A. Lee Mayer, he says I want to get it right, the
Just
organization.
2,400K is available.
Right.
My understanding is that the RFP requests primarily 2,700. That's it. I think it says 2,700 or warmer, if I'm correct. I think that's how it goes, but it's going to be 2,700 because it's 2,700. The cooler the lights, the more energy efficient they are, and so it's basically more expensive, right, to go to 2,400 than 2,700. So they're not going to do it. Anything else? So I guess I will move this resolution and with the addition of a paragraph on accountability that says elimination of 311 is concerning. We strongly request that all monitoring of complaints are readily accessible to the public. So I'm going to move this amendment with the friendly addition of the accountability section. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 7-0. Okay, I think we have an issue. We have a business issue now, Randy, so I'm going to turn it back to you. Anyway,
Yes,
thank
we
you
do.
all. Thanks everybody for participating. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone else for showing up too.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the past, we have an obligation every year to adopt a budget, and we're supposed to adopt the budget within 60 days of the determination of what the allocation is going to be for ANCs, and that was done back in the July, August timeframe. So we're delinquent in getting our budget adopted. And we presented this at the December 14th ANC meeting, and the commissioners at that point were not prepared to go ahead with it. I think they were just still hadn't reviewed it. That was a meeting when we had a lot of other things on our agenda. We brought it up again at or it was proposed as an agenda item for our January 11th meeting, and people wanted a little bit more time to look at the budget. So the budget is really a guide document. It is not, it doesn't bind us in any way. The easiest explanation for it is that it gives us the authority to make expenditures, to write checks and so on, without getting individual check approval. If we've already approved it in the budget. For instance, all of the payments for Stephanie's salary do not have to be individually approved by the commission because they were approved as part of the budget. And so that's really the major reason for having a budget other than the planning purposes that it provides. Now, I will note a couple of things that are a little bit different or that we might want to focus on. One is you'll note that for the expenses in FY20 for personnel, they're significantly less than we actually had budgeted. And that's almost entirely because of the pandemic and our inability for Stephanie to go into the office. And so we have not paid her nearly as much as we would normally have done because we pay her by the hour. I will also note that the district allotment is, the allotment went up in FY20, a higher per quarter payment. But there were several payments, again, because of the pandemic that were late from the Office of ANCs. And so we received 2 additional quarterly payments in October that really should have been paid in the previous year. And so that's why we've got a much higher budgeted expected allotment for 2021, because it's those 2 quarters of payments that slipped over into 2021. The other thing I will note is on grants. I think it was Connie or Lisa One asked a question at the beginning before everyone was on, what we've done about grants in the past. And we've given grants based both on need and on our ability to pay them, because our bank account varies from year to year, and depending on how much we've had to spend on other things. And so sometimes we have more money to give in grants. We've always felt that, and I think this is exactly the right policy, that we shouldn't have a lot of money sitting around in a bank account. We need to have enough there to cover expenses if a quarterly allotment is late or something like that, so that we've got plenty of money to pay our bills. But at the same time, there are some, believe it or not, there are some ANCs that have more than $100,000 in the bank. And that is simply not appropriate, I think, for an ANC when we have the ability to give grants to support various causes in our community. So anyway, we've got 8,000 in the budget because we do have a lot more money in our bank account now, and we really should be thinking about grants. And there is one that we've got an application for a grant from the Chevy Chase Main Street, and our grants are limited to $2,000, and they have asked for $2,000, but the application was not sufficiently specific. The grant application has to specify exactly how that $2,000 is going to be spent. And it was more general about, here's all the things that the Main Street is going to be doing. And it has to be focused on a particular project, a particular thing that's the grant's going to go for. So I asked the Main Street to reapply to complete the application and make it more specific. And we haven't got anything back, but I'm sure we'll get that shortly. But those are the kinds of things that we would normally give grants to. So any questions about the budget? Yes, John?
As I gather it, then the allotments from the district continue. This is not a use it or lose it situation. They are carried over from year to year, which is why you can have a whole lot of money there after
Yes.
a certain period of time.
Yes. And the allotments, we have to get in our quarterly reports. And unless we get in our quarterly report, we don't get our allotment. So
Yeah. Speaking of
delayed.
that, I'm ready to roll on that stuff
Okay.
as the treasurer. If
Yeah,
we
we're
can
gonna
ever
have to
get
do-
together and go to the bank and do the cards and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
we have to do all of that. And all of the officers will have to sign new bank signature cards.
When would be our next deadline for a quarterly report?
The last quarter ended at December 31st. And so we'll need to have another, and we're supposed to get our quarterly reports in, I think it's within 60 days of that.
So December 31st has not yet been filed.
No, it's not.
So we have to do a catch up on that.
Yeah,
And we have to
and
do the first quarter for the current period.
right. Well, yeah, and that won't happen until the end of March when we'll have that. And then it'll be 60 days after that when we have to file the March quarterly report for that quarter.
Okay, thanks.
Connie has her hand up.
Oh, Connie? And I think Lisa had her hand up too. Lisa, I think was first. Lisa?
Randy, can you tell me, I don't know if it's, let's see, purchase of service, would that include services like technical improvements to our website?
Yes, it could.
Okay. What is our flexibility? Because a couple of us have been discussing definitely trying to improve the website. The survey site that we're using now, Question Pro. Is there any room to increase that budget line item for that?
What I would suggest, instead of doing it in an increase in the budget, is that we can authorize that based on a specific expenditure. If we have a proposal to do Question Pro, for instance, we can authorize that at any meeting.
Okay.
Just, it doesn't have to be in the budget to be able to authorize it.
Okay.
And that's the way we pay for the Zoom meetings, for instance. That's not an item in the budget specifically. And so we authorized it by individual invoices that we receive, that I receive and that I pay.
All right. Thank you.
And Connie?
Going back to grants, what has been our practice? Does the commission as a group decide in terms of which quarter will put out a call for grants? Do we announce it? Do we then say we have this much money? Each grant would be up to $2,000. How does that process work?
Well,
And has it worked in the past?
There is a grant procedure process that specifies we can set a grant application period, and then we receive the applications within that grant period. Sometimes we've done it twice a year, sometimes we've done it once a year. It again depends on how much money we've got and whether it's appropriate to be giving grants then. And then the grant application comes in and we have to hear a presentation on the application at a public meeting. And then we cannot vote on the grant application at that meeting. We have to vote on it at the next meeting. And so we can establish a grant application period anytime we want, or we can take grants whenever we get an application, as with the Chevy Chase Main Street application.
Better to do it once a year because it's kind of a cumbersome.
Yeah. Okay, and John, you had your hand up?
I guess just to Lisa's question, I guess we have the 9 categories of expenditures. And I guess everything has to fit into one of those. And if it's outside of that, we have the miscellaneous with other.
Right. Right. And those are categories that are established by the Office of ANC.
Right, yeah. I've been checking our fellow ANC websites and it's universal.
Right. Okay, any more questions? Okay, I would move that we approve our budget for FY21. Is there a second? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. Thank you all. I don't think there's anything else for this special meeting. And we will convene again on January 25th. And I've circulated the agenda for that meeting, the draft agenda for that meeting, and I'll be posting it in the next couple of days.
So can I ask a question about
Yes,
that?
Michael?
So on the 25th, I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry, I'm just overwhelmed with stuff. Is that our DDOT?
No,
meeting?
no, that's the task force on racism.
That's the task force. And then after the next one after that is
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm. And
Okay.
Peter, I owe you a call. I know I will call you soon. After tomorrow I've got to take my mom to the doctor again and everything. And then,
Are you still in New York then?
yeah, we're still in New York.
Oh, okay.
Every other day we go in, we're out on Long Island. Every other day we go into the city for a few hours of doctor and then come back.
So the last item is I'm going to revise this resolution. I'm going to add that paragraph. I'll send it around to everybody. Everybody
And
approved.
then we have to get it signed tomorrow. it's tomorrow and get it in to DDOT tomorrow, right?
You sign it, right? Right?
Yes, I do, and Lisa.
Lisa.
It has to be
yeah,
signed by
secretary.
All right,
the
so
chair
I
and
will,
secretary.
I will send this out in about 10 minutes. And then I'll leave it to you guys to sign it and get it in.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, thank you all for.
Okay,
all your
thank
good
you all.
questions.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.